Hey YouTube, Gordon Miller here. Okay, so I got another question, and the question that I got was about my various speeding tickets. Well, you know, at the risk of exposing my my driving history, I thought I would go ahead and share that with you guys, really as a cautionary tale. I've had several tickets in my lifetime, and most of them when I was younger and before I really kind of understood the ramifications and the implications and the cost of you know, a life of crime. So the biggest tickets I've gotten so far was I was in my '02 Porsche 911 twin turbo, and this was in Blacksburg, Virginia. I was actually going to get pizza for the family. We lived outside of town, so I went into town, grabbed the pizzas from Pizza Hut, and they were sitting in the floorboard of the seats, and I pulled up at one of the lights on the main road there at Price's Fork Road, and this kid in a twin turbo Nissan pulls up right behind me. He switches lanes to pull into my lane, and he comes up real close, almost bumping me. And so I pull up a little bit just to give us some distance in case he rolls. I didn't want him to roll into my car. Well, this kid thinks that's a cue that I actually want to race him, which I don't. And you know, I'm headed home with the pizzas. I'm not going to race him. But so he pulls up a little bit more, and again almost bumps me. Well, you know, this kid is now dangerous. So I decided, you know what? The best thing to do is to just put some distance between me and this kid. So, you know, the light turns green and I drop the hammer. And so the commuter parking lot in Virginia Tech is about a natural quarter of a mile long. And so we're on the main road, and there's two red lights, one a quarter of a mile away from the one we just left. So I looked back about the eighth of a mile mark, about halfway, and he was about, you know, halfway of that. So he, you know, he was a long ways behind me. And I looked down as I'm approaching the other light, and the speedometer, the digital speedometer over the analog gauges was set to speed. And so, you know, I see it go 98, 111, 118, 121. And all of a sudden I started thinking, oh my God, I'm going to go to jail. And the thought crosses my mind, the only thing I can think to do is hit the brakes. So I hit the brakes, I look down, it says 127 or 128 on the speedometer, and 127, and then it starts rapidly going down. Well, I look up to see what's ahead of me, because the way was clear because of the traffic lights before, and there's a cop coming the other way. So, of course, I pass him at, you know, somewhere between 127 and not 127. And of course, this is a 35 mile an hour zone. So 127 and a 35 is not a good sign. So I pull down one of the side streets to pull off away from everybody else. And then I wait for the officer to show up, because he has to turn around, and I don't know if he's going to chase the other guy because he's easier to get. And of course I pull over, and eventually, I mean, I can hear the sirens. It's not just one. I mean, they must have called out for reinforcements. And so they block off the street that I'm on. I'm pulled over, car's turned off, and they block off the end of the street, both ends of the street. And this kid comes and pulls around me and parks in front of me. And he's, you know, out the window going, woohoo, woohoo. I'm like, oh God. So the cops block off the street. There's 4 officers blocking both sides of each lane. Nobody's going anywhere. And the officer gets out of the car and you know, has his hand on his gun, and he's like, "Don't you fucking move." And I'm like, I'm not going anywhere. I pulled over and waited for you. And he goes, "I'm going to deal with this kid first, then I'm going to come back to you." And I'm like, okay, fine. Sounds good to me. So they spend about a half an hour with this kid, and he does not drive his car away. They tow his car away, and they give him a ride. So anyway, then they come over to me, and I'm like, okay, well, that didn't go well for him. And he's like, what the hell are you thinking? And I'm like, look, I'm just picking up pizza. I got the pizzas are on the floorboard, and I show him. It's like, hey, I go, the kid almost hit me at the light. I pulled up, he pulled up, almost bumped me, and so there's nothing I could do. I just decided to put some distance between him and me, and unfortunately, before I knew it, it was I was way up ahead of him, and I didn't realize how fast I was going, and so I'm sorry. And he goes, well, he goes, I got a problem. And I go, okay, well, what's your problem? And he goes, well, I got you at 75. Oh, okay. And then he goes, then I got your buddy at behind you. I got him at 55. And then when I turned around, I got you again, and you were down at 55 at that point. And I'm like, okay, great. So he's like, so what's your problem? He goes, well, I got to explain to the judge how you went from, almost 100 miles an hour, about between 100 miles an hour, 75, down to 55 miles an hour in, half a second and a half. And I go, well, that sounds like a real problem. Maybe there's something wrong with your equipment. And he goes, there's nothing wrong with my equipment, I can assure you. So, but I was just surprised that he had not gotten a lock on me until I was under 100, which is fine. Over 80 miles an hour, actually over 20 miles an hour over in Virginia is mandatory jail time. So that's not good. And sometimes they suspend some of the time, sometimes they don't. But anyway, I continued the case, which is always advisable if you need some time to confer with your attorney on a proper strategy. I lawyered up, and the kid didn't continue his, and he lost his license for 2 years and had to perform 1,000 hours of community service, and he had to pay over $1,000 fine and a whole bunch of stuff. So the kid really got hammered. But so when I went in there to to do this, I was in better shape than he was, because I had done the research, and I also sold my car. And so my attorney had an interesting strategy. So he called me to the stand, and he asked me to, explain what happened. And I explained it, just as I've explained it to you guys. And he goes, well, so do you still have that car, Mr. Miller? And I go, no, I mean, it's way too dangerous in a college town like this, that if it's going to incite college kids to misbehave, then I don't want that kind of liability or responsibility. It's best that I just, I got rid of it. And he goes, so how'd you make out on that sale? And I go, well, not great. I mean, I sold it for a loss. And he goes, I said, I paid $128,800 for the car about a year ago, and I sold it for $97,000. And he goes, so you lost money? And I go, yeah, I lost $11,635 on the deal. So I had to write a check to the bank for $11,635. And so my attorney goes, $11,635. And let that number kind of hang out there. And he told the judge, he goes, well, Your Honor, I believe that is the largest self-imposed fine for speeding in Montgomery County history. Which the courtroom just erupted. I mean, it was hilarious. And the judge kind of, he was leaning forward, listening to the story, and he kind of leans back in his chair, and he thinks about it for a second. He's kind of looking up and, kind of tapping his hands, and he's like, well, I think Mr. Miller has suffered enough. And I was like, whoa, all right. And he goes, I tell you what, I will let you go and dismiss the charges on 2 conditions. Okay. And he's like, first, if you ever show up in my court again for speeding, it's an automatic default. I will give you 100% of whatever the charges are that you're here for, plus 100% of these charges. And I'm like, whoa, wow, that's okay. I mean, that's kind of tough, but okay. And I go, what's the second condition? And he goes, well, you can never own another Porsche 911 as long as you live in my district. And I'm like, I asked my attorney, I was like, can he do that? I mean, he goes, shut up and say yes. And I'm like, Jesus, all right, fine. Yes, thank you, Your Honor. And so he dismissed the charges. And I was like, whoa, that's great. Well, wait a minute, but I can't buy another 911. Well, this is 2003 by now. And we were, trying to figure out what to do. We were thinking about moving from Blacksburg, Virginia to Richmond, Virginia. And so I ended up moving in 2004. So I moved out of the district. And in 2005, of course, Porsche had the new launch vehicles for the new 911s. And the guys ordered me a black on black launch edition car with every option. So it was hilarious because I was like, woohoo, I can buy one, but I can never come back to Blacksburg. And we have our headquarters there. So I decided not to buy it. But it was hilarious at the time anyway. And so I thought it was funny. It worked out well that way. The second speeding ticket was a little less helpful. And I'll do that in another video here right now. I'll upload that separately. Okay? Thanks a lot, everybody. Thanks for listening to my story. Appreciate you guys subscribing and following, and thanks for your interest in the content. See ya.